Got it. Got it. Okay, so we're going to review chapter 1 for Grendel. Um, make sure you have it out. I'm going to call on you, all that good stuff. So, just starting it off, question number 1. What does Grendel's relationship with nature, the ram, the sky, grass, the doe, baby birds, all that stuff, what does it reveal about his personality? How does he react to nature? And how does that play into his own personality?
I basically said that he acts like kind of I don't really know exactly how to say.
Well, what'd you put down?
I basically said he's alone. He has nobody to talk to him. He tries to talk to him, but none of them are answering him.
So he's trying to communicate with anything right now, specifically nature, because it's what he's in the most, right? So he's trying to communicate with nature, and what's happening?
And no one can understand him.
Nothing can understand him. What does that lead to when he tries to communicate with nature? Let's look at the ram, the first thing that happens. He's trying to tell the ram to go away, and what does it do to him when it doesn't listen to him?
It charges at him.
Not the ram, but think of the bull. The first animal in the beginning of it. He tries to talk to the ram. What happens? What does it do? What does it not do? It doesn't talk back to begin with, yeah. And it just kind of wanders away. But what does that lead to him feeling about it?
Lonely?
He's lonely. And we know about the loneliness. What does that always lead to with him? What's the way he reacts to a lot of things? Mad. Gets violent. Doesn't know how to communicate. His lack of communication leads him to his violent acts, and he always does that over and over. Quote the various phrases Grendel uses to describe himself. What do they reveal about his self-image and how it was developed? So, how does he describe himself? What words does he use? You don't have it? Do you have it? Is he positive about himself? Say it. Is he positive about himself? Yes or no? No. Communicate with me, guys. That's the whole point of the story. We have to communicate with each other. So he's not positive about the way he describes himself, right? What words does he use, though? Question number 2. What does he use? What does he say? Calls himself dumb or foolish. He's lonely. He describes himself as being alone all the time. He calls himself, with his monstrous features, hunched. He's not positive. Now, he could be comparing himself to humanity, but at the same time, I think he's just upset with himself in general. I think that's the whole aspect of this. And when left to his own devices of being alone, he instinctively regresses to negativity every single time. Right? It's either lashing out at someone, his mother specifically more often than not, or himself. What is the significance of the scene in when Grendel challenges the dark chasms? What do you got, Jenny? Challenging himself in the home? Okay. What's he challenging himself to do, you think? Enter early. Okay. That's perfectly fine. He's challenging himself. He constantly talks about how it's trying to, he's trying to challenge it to do what to him? Trying to challenge it to eat him. Then he finally regards it as the only way that this will happen is if I do it myself. So once again, he's challenging himself about all that. He's seeing if he has kind of what it takes, is kind of how he puts it. What does Grendel mean when he speaks of playing cat and mouse with the universe? And what does it mean to see all life without observing? You got something for me, Jake?
I think he's chasing after something new, and he's learning that they can do it around.
Okay, so let's start off there. He's chasing after something. He's the cat or is he the mouse? He's the cat. He's chasing the universe. He's chasing after life, or he's chasing after purpose or meaning. As the story goes on, that's a constant that comes up, is his idea of not understanding and wanting to know, wanting to be a part of something. He's always seen as the outsider. The other part I was interesting too. The look but don't see. Now, observe. He says that life, that nature and everything they see, but they don't observe. Now, what does that mean? The difference between seeing and observing. Do you have an idea?
He doesn't know what's happening, he still sees it.
Okay.
He doesn't understand what's going on.
Yeah. So to see something is different than observing it, right? If I were to tell you that you saw that, but did you understand it, might be a better way of putting it. Did you analyze it? There's a difference between looking at someone or looking at a painting, let's say, and just seeing a bunch of paint on a canvas. And I told you to look at it or observe it or analyze it. And that would take into account maybe the feelings that you could get from the artist or anything like that.
Interruption, this announcement for students and staff. Just, I know there's a tech connection issue with the internet, so just please be patient. We're working on it. Again, this announcement for all students and staff. There's a tech connection issue with the internet. They're working on it, and we'll let you know when it's back up and running. Thank you.
It's like the school knows it's your class, this specific period, because everything goes wrong in this period. Yeah, so observation is going to be different than seeing. He observes things while nature sees things, is the best way of putting it. Describe Grendel's mother and his relationship with her. So what words does he use to describe his mom? What do you got, Kayla? Yeah, he describes her very negatively, doesn't he? He's always very negative when he describes her. He calls her things like fat and dumb and bestial and like mound. He even uses terms to describe her shape, and those words are very. There's something wrong with them. They sound so mean. He's 5 seconds away from saying "I hate you, Mom" and slamming his door, like as a child. And what does that tell you about his relationship with her? Calling someone Jacoby. What do you got?
It's not a good relationship that they have.
There you go. It's not a good relationship. Every time she tries to comfort him, what does he do? Every time she hugs him, what does he do? How does he react? Remember, every time he freaks out about something, he has a panic attack, or he gets angry, and she doesn't know what to do because they can't talk to each other. She grabs him and tries to hug him. What does he do?
He tries to scram away.
He tries to get away. Yeah, he attacks her. That's not a healthy relationship. Every time your mom tried to hug you, if you punched her, what would that be? That'd be a bad relationship. From Grendel's point of view, what is man? How does he see humanity whenever he's talked about them? What's his view? Addison. Violent, destructive, and greedy. He doesn't have a very positive view of humans. And we've seen that in how he kind of talks about it in chapter 1, where he's like, I don't want to talk about humans, they're terrible, I don't want to talk about them. Chapter 2, this isn't about chapter 2, this is chapter 1, obviously, but chapter 2, as you know, his interaction with humans wasn't very good, was it? No. They try to kill him right away. Not a very good moment. So he doesn't view them particularly well. Which human does Grendel say he has to be forced to admire, though? There was one human. He's like, I feel like I admire him a little bit. And it's kind of a funnier moment in the chapter, I guess you could say. Christian.
Is it like the old chapter or storyteller?
The Shaper, yeah. He's like, I have to admire that old blind man. He got out that window real quick. It wasn't, I think they explain it later on, like he kind of admires him for other reasons, but in the context of this chapter, he admires him for being blind and being able to jump out of a window during his attack. I don't know, this joke has some of those moments where it's just like dark comedy that kind of goes on. And then finally, how does Grendel's first meeting with man affect him? Remember, that was his first meeting in this chapter. What happens after he has his bloody rampage? What happens to him? What's the mood he gets into, I should say? What do you got, Megan?
Like after the first time,
Mm-hmm.
he was like, legitimately want him. But like, he was like annoyed a bit.
Yeah. He had this, he gave off this feeling almost of like, it's like a chore at this point. He doesn't enjoy doing it. He's like, I'm going to go and do this stupid thing. And he gets down there, and he kind of starts having a little bit of fun. And he kills a bunch of people and eats them and runs away and laughs about it. And then what hits him right after the event, as he's like sitting there for a moment and realizing what he did? What's the word they use? Starts with a G, then an L, a couple of O's in there. He gets gloom, is what he calls it. The gloom returns. Or, as we found with him, what does he seem like he kind of suffers from? If we're going to go with more of a real-world psychological idea about it. Depression. He's exhibiting depression. Or manic depressive episodes, even. He has these crazy moments of, like, energy and doing stuff, which is, bear in mind, attacking and killing people in this because he's a monster. But then afterwards, after it's all said and done, and he's sitting there, and he's like, he's not even enjoying himself, he's just done. And he sits there for a moment, and immediately, depression again. And he's like, this is nonsense.
For instruction, we were advised that the issue is resolved. If you have any questions, just let the main office know. Again, at this time, everything should be working properly. Thank you.
Anyways, you're going to find that happens once again in this story. It happened in the chapter that you did in chapter 2 as well, if you didn't notice. How he reacts to everything. It's not very good. How he reacts to his mom isn't very good. How when he's trapped in the tree, he's like, oh, woe is me, poor Grendel, meh. That kind of stuff happens. It's a depressive episode that happens to him where he starts off not understanding something, thinking about it, getting angry about it, lashing out, and going back. And he's always kind of sad to confused to angry to content to sad again. And not to put that on other people that we might know, but doesn't this feel like a kind of a real world situation that could happen to someone? I mean, if you've ever met somebody like that, I have. I've known people. Obviously, I'm older. But, like, that's something that happens. And it's being exhibited in a fantastical sense in here. And that's something to pay attention to with this. Because remember, this isn't like Beowulf. This isn't a high, a high fantasy or heroic journey story. This is all about, like, the analyzation of a person through the context of a monster. And that's how we're going to put it together. Okay? So the next chapter, we're going to be going into after we do this little chapters 1 and 2 thing that we have for you, okay? So if you want